All right, we are live on October 10th with the weekly AA meeting, the Amateur Analyst Sports Podcast. Going to let it run down for all the boys wearing hats tonight to introduce themselves. Kyle, start it off.
What's up, guys? Excited to talk some more college football and some NFL stuff. We'll talk division leaders. And, of course, we'll talk about the Noles versus Miami.
Gentlemen, I make my return. I'm drinking a red Merlot in honor of Donald Trump's speech last night. I'm also wearing full Noles gear. Go Noles.
Hello, everybody. I'm drinking a Bud Light on draft. And we'll talk a lot of things tonight. One thing we'll certainly be talking about is our condolences that we'll be sending Brett Bielema's way as he fights through this tough time. We'll discuss why and how later. But I'm wearing an A's hat tonight because I just got a notification on my phone that Coco Crisp hit a 2-run home run, only to realize that the A's are not in the playoffs anymore and that he actually plays for the Indians now.
All right, and I'm your host, Eric Palmer Jones. I'll give you a little analysis as well, as always. Welcome to our two live viewers that are starting off early with us tonight. This is the closest we've ever started to our announced start time, 2 minutes late, so we're pretty proud of that. We also are keeping this one under an hour no matter what, so I'm going to be yelling at these guys to stop talking and move on quite often, I think. We're going to get right into it with the NFL. Any general reactions for our picks or for games around the league? Kyle?
Yeah, not much for me. Every single week, I feel like I do enough research to do against the spread and straight up for the NFL, and I fail miserably every single time. I easily have the worst against the spread percentage for the group. I did pick the good old Buffalo Bills over Palmer's Rams, though, and I love that one. Other than that, pretty below average, typical week for me in the NFL.
Yep, I as well was under 500 on my picks. Not really anything that popped out except Green Bay. They really brought it home for me. I picked the Giants plus 7.5. Green Bay got the win by 7, so that's a win-win for me. Go Pack.
Yeah, so I really switched positions here. Not that I wasn't already leading the NFL against the spread too, but I had a really, for my standards, a really poor week in college. We'll get to that later. I'm more than willing to admit what an idiot I was in that regard. But I made up for it in the NFL. I believe I went 10-3 against the spread in NFL picks, and not actually putting that towards any sort of talent. When I pick NFL, I pick completely on feeling, and I think I picked like 4 or 5 ridiculous upsets or against the spread picks that actually ended up happening. So I don't think I really deserve too much credit. I'll just call it a fluke. I do want to say, and this is not just because Palmer's here, I thought the most interesting game of the week was that Los Angeles versus Buffalo game. I think whichever team won that really propelled their season. I kind of think that we got to look at Buffalo now and say that Rex Ryan might actually have something going there. I think LA is a very good team. I think they're going to contend for that division with the Seahawks, and I think the fact that the Bills, since that game against the Jets, have really looked like a very good team should be something that the rest of the league is looking out for.
I just want to go one thing really quick on Doobie's pick. He was the only one to get San Diego, and not only did he have them, but he had them straight up. I thought that was a really crazy pick at the time, and now we all look like idiots.
Well, San Diego lost, but that's okay.
San Diego lost. Yeah. Oakland won by 3. Yeah, because that's the against the spread green.
I hit them against the spread, but I did have a couple insane ones.
My spreadsheets are a bit confusing for people, but which just makes sense because I do it in a really weird way, but it makes sense to me. But no, everyone had Oakland to cover and they missed by half a point, much like Green Bay did when Kyle was the only one that had them covering. We're going to move on right out of picks and reactions and get into are the Vikings the best team in the league? They are the only undefeated team left. The Eagles lost yesterday. The Broncos lost yesterday. Kyle, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point it's really hard to argue that. I mean, they're missing their starting running back, top flight wide receiver last week. their starting QB, and they're still moving the ball at will. I mean, Sam Bradford's been in Minnesota for what, 6 weeks maybe, not even. It's really impressive the way they're beating teams. I think the Patriots with Tom Brady back and with Gronk back might have a case, and I guess we'll see how that shakes out over the next couple of weeks. But for now, I mean, Minnesota really absolutely looks dominant.
100% agree. Yep, 100% agree. Make a case for New England not having Brady. Make a case for even Pittsburgh. They had one fluke week against Philadelphia, I believe, where they just got shattered. But aside from that, Pittsburgh's looked really good. But hands down, it has to be Minnesota. I mean, the things that they're doing on defense and the things that they're doing on offense even are just unforeseen. And they're a good team. They have heart and soul.
Doobie.
I think you'd be ridiculous to argue anything but the fact that right now they are the best team in the NFL. They've looked seamless in every regard of the game, including offense, and I don't even think that Adrian Peterson is the biggest loss. Not having Matt Khalil, who's their best offensive lineman, and still dominating the line of scrimmage is pretty insane. That being said, I feel like we see one of these every single year in the NFC, a team that just dominates, and then they never end up winning the Super Bowl. The only team that ever ends up winning the Super Bowl in the NFC is the Giants when they suck all regular season and then find out how to turn it on in the playoffs.
There's another team in the NFC that won a Super Bowl a couple years ago.
Yes. The Green Bay Packers, that was, double a couple, I guess. But, I guess the Packers were decent all season, but they didn't dominate that season.
No, I was just making a joke.
But seriously, I feel like every year there's a team in the NFC that is going for or near an undefeated record or has the best record in football, and they never deliver on it. And I just feel like that's going to be the Vikings this year, even if they can get AP and Matt Khalil back.
Yeah, so I'm not going to add too much. I would say really the only challengers are New England, and I got to say Atlanta's close. If they'd pulled out a late win against Tampa Bay, they'd be 5-0 as well. They barely lost that game and haven't lost since. Have also beat Denver and Carolina as well. So I think if they'd pulled that win out, they'd be there. They're not quite there right now.
Can we just discuss that really quick?
Sure.
I don't believe Atlanta's for real. They did this exact same thing last year. If everyone remembers, they were 5-0. I think that Atlanta runs an offense that is very difficult to figure out at first, but once people get film on it, they end up shutting it down. I think the fact that Julio Jones had 29 receiving yards last week is a good indicator that people are starting to figure it out. That two running back system is not going to work forever in the NFL. I don't see Atlanta as the contender. If anyone, I see it as Pittsburgh, who is the next best team besides New England and Minnesota. And I still don't think you can count out the Packers. And my wild card in there would be the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are still a really, really good team.
I just want to take 1 second and agree with Doobie. And since we're in MLB postseason, the Falcons remind me a lot of Toronto. Heavy offense. They can score at any point. But I think the ultimate downfall for Atlanta Falcons and Toronto Blue Jays is going to be the defense or the pitching. There's going to come a point where they're just not going to be able to do everything on offense, and that's going to be their downfall. Pretty much like Doobie said, once teams start to, see the tendencies and start to figure out how to break them, they're going to have no answer.
That being said, if the Falcons get to the point that the Toronto Blue Jays have in NFL's universe, they should be very proud of themselves.
Also, with no Cam Newton for a couple of weeks, the NFC South is out there for the taking at this point. I don't know how long Cam's going to be out, but the Saints haven't looked that impressive. Obviously, the Bucs are struggling, but if Atlanta keeps winning games, who knows?
All right, we're going to move it on. I'm going to read off a list of the current division leaders and just let everyone talk about one or two of them. Pretty surprising in a lot of divisions. It would have been a lot better if LA had pulled the win yesterday and been leading their division, but Seattle with the bye is currently leading that one. So we have Dallas with no Tony Romo playing all year. We have Minnesota, who we've talked about, with no quarterback and running back starting. They're starting quarterback and running back. Khalil out, as Doobie said. Atlanta, which I don't think anyone expected them to be leading the division. Then Seattle, which maybe is a little expected. You got New England with no Brady going 3-1 without him. leading the division. Pittsburgh, one of the more obvious ones, they did it. Houston, which that division's kind of a train wreck, and then Oakland leading their division. So just some thoughts on any surprises there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of surprises so far this year. I wouldn't really classify Oakland as a surprise. I really like that team. The 3 C's, Amari Cooper, Michael Crabtree, and Derek Carr are really getting it done. Let's see if they can keep winning. And obviously, Pittsburgh's only going to get better with Le'Veon Bell. The real X factor for me in Pittsburgh has been Sammy Coates. That dude has really evolved. He finally caught his first NFL touchdown this past week. He's a big deep threat for them. He can kind of play opposite Antonio Brown. I think has really been big. He's one of the only Auburn wide receivers to actually make it in the NFL, so that's interesting. And then Atlanta surprises me in the South, mostly just because I'm really shocked about how the Panthers start, but I'll get to that a little bit later.
Going on Sammy Coates real quick, I think the biggest thing that he brings is the replication of Martavius Bryant. Because the biggest concern I had for that offense wasn't Tom Brady, wasn't Le'Veon coming back, but it was just our team's going to be able to double team Antonio Brown without Martavius Bryant there to spread the field. And what he's been able to do has been perfect. You pretty much forget about Martavius at this point because Coates has been such a good receiver for that team. The other team that I want to talk about is Dallas. Even though they don't have Romo, Dak Prescott has been just an absolute stud. We all know about his rookie passing interception record that he set, and that's amazing.
Didn't Wentz break it, and then like a week later, Dak broke it?
No, Dak was
ahead.
The 1 o'clock game and the 4 o'clock game. So Wentz broke it on the 1 o'clock game, and then once the 4 o'clock game came through, Dak broke it. Because Wentz ended up throwing an interception on his something pass.
How do you take Dak off the field at this point?
There's no chance.
There is a chance. It's Jerry Jones.
They've already said definitively as soon as Romo's healthy, he's the starter.
It's gonna happen.
It's so crazy.
It's ridiculous. I mean, not only is the fact that to take Dak Prescott, who honestly is playing one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the league right now. He's maybe the most efficient of all of them. That's absurd. But the fact that you're putting Tony Romo in a life or death situation, the guy should retire. Like, it's done. The Cowboys, make him the quarterback coach. Give him $1 million a year just to sit there on the sideline with them. But to not have Dak Prescott in the game while putting Tony Romo's health at risk makes no sense to me. And the only person who would ever do it is Jerry Jones.
Yeah, but I think if the players are backing up Dak, like everyone is saying the players are, I don't think when it comes down to it, you can take a guy who's leading you to a record that you never would have imagined out of the game.
A presidential order could come down to Jerry Jones, and he wouldn't obey it.
I'm not saying
any other franchise. I agree with you, but just the fact that Jerry Jones is such a maniac and believes that only his way is the right way, that I think that he's the only guy that I could see him actually starting Romo.
It could happen. I just don't think it will, is what I'm saying.
All right, we need to move it on. Sirio, you got any more comments on the division leaders?
No.
All righty, Doobie.
Yeah, I mean, they're surprising all around. I'm not surprised by Oakland. I'm more surprised by Denver because really to say that Oakland's in the lead for that division isn't exactly true. If any of us are looking at it objectively, Denver's really the leader in that division. I'm surprised that Oakland is – I thought they would win that division. I didn't think that Denver would be this close, and I think if any of us had to project it going forward, most of us would pick Denver to win that division. That being said, Oakland, I think, is a playoff team, and I think they're a good team. NFC South is the most surprising to me. Not even that the Falcons are doing well, because like I said, they did this last year, but the fact that the Panthers are doing so terribly, and I don't even think it's Norman, so I can't put a finger on what would make a team go from that level to what they're showing now on the defensive side of the ball.
Well, Josh Norman isn't on the team.
That's what I'm
That's
saying.
what he's saying.
That's what he's saying.
I'm not even saying that Norman not being there
Yeah.
is. I don't even think that's the issue. It just seems like schematically they've lost everything.
It looks like they just have the championship hangover. Like they don't have the same fight that they did last year.
Right, and I don't know what's going on in this game tonight, but if they lose to the Bucks, I think it'd be safe to say that they're not getting back in that division race.
The Bucks just had a big third down stop on 3rd and short to get them off the field, and they're up 3-0 already. It's interesting to me, though, because the defense has been on the field so much this year because the offensive line sucks. Cam Newton's been getting hammered since game 1 against Denver. It's been unbelievable. So I think that has something to do with it. They just I'll talk about it in disappointments, but they just released one of their starting cornerbacks, the guy who's pretty much was supposed to be there to replace Norman. He hadn't done a damn thing. So
all right, so we're going to move on from that real quick to clarify, just for the viewers, on Doobie's comments about Denver technically leading that division. Oakland and Denver are both 4-1. The only reason Oakland's the leader is because they're 1-0 in division, and Denver hadn't played a division game yet. So it's kind of a technicality. It's got Oakland ahead right now, just to clarify what Doobie was talking about. We're going to move into I think we already know what Kyle's going to be, but it's the biggest surprise of the season.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's the struggles of the Panthers. Doobie touched on a little bit. Secondary has been really, really bad. They really seem to miss Josh Norman. Their whole team has struggled, but it's been very obvious on the defensive side of the ball. Bené Benikwari, their starting cornerback for the last 4 games after he got worked last week, was immediately released. So they're playing tonight against the Bucs. We'll see how they recover. Me personally, I hope they recover well because I have the Carolina defense in fantasy. But we'll see. Absolutely, through the first 4 games, they've been the most disappointing.
So my pick is going to be Arizona. They already have as many losses this season as they do all of last season. You know, I understand that Carson Palmer was out last week or this week, and they ended up losing, which is an excuse, I suppose. But I still think they won, but it was like a horrible win. So I think that, being 2-3, they're in deep trouble. The Rams are not a good team. I'm sorry. The 49ers are even worse, and the Seahawks are vulnerable. I think that the Cardinals were supposed to run away with this. Does anyone else have an opinion, or do I sound crazy here?
Yeah, I think the Cardinals are going to absolutely destroy the Jets, my team, the Jets, next week. And we're all going to be talking about how the fact that we overreacted to them starting 2-3.
Yeah. That NFC West is really up for grabs too. I mean, none of them have really looked that impressive to me.
I mean, the Seahawks have looked. Since they had that one really unimpressive game against LA, and I think LA's looked impressive. I think the NFC West has actually looked very impressive. I think part of it is that we're not giving those other 2 teams enough credit.
I also don't watch enough of their games, so I'm slightly biased in that regard because I don't pay a whole lot of attention except for when Palmer's talking about the Rams.
I just want to say one thing. I just said that the Rams were terrible. They're not terrible. They're actually a really good team. How they've been in the past couple weeks has been terrible. Gurley finally looked like a human being last week, so I think they turn it around. And yes, I agree with you, Doobie. We do need to give them some credit. But just in a vacuum, the Cardinals have been unimpressive.
I agree with you that they definitely been a big surprise being unimpressive. I just think that this is going to turn around. And I think a lot of what we're seeing, and we're talking. I hear it from the Tampa media, and everyone's so down on Jameis Winston right now. And I think it's because the Cardinals have a 2-3 record, and he played so terribly in that game. But when we look at it later, I think the Cardinals are going to have one of the best defenses, and they're going to be one of the better teams.
Quick question to each of you in turn before we go on to Doobie's biggest surprise. If you had to guess where Arizona right now at 2-3 ranked in point differential this year, where would you go with?
Oof, they got to be near the bottom, right?
They got to be near the top. They crushed the Bucs.
Yeah, I just looked at it. Sorry, Palmer. I don't want to.
They crushed the Bucs.
They're 6th in the league in point differential at plus 24 with a 2-3 record. So
that is deceiving though, because they got 33 of those points against the Bucs, like 33 plus.
But then you look at the Rams, who I know got beat up in the first game, but they're 3-2 and they're minus 24. 50-point difference, basically. So
I think that's a good indicator of which of those teams will have a better record at the end of the season.
Yeah.
God, I hope not. Anyway, Doobie, biggest surprise.
Well, I'm not even going to name a team. I think the biggest surprise to me is that the Philadelphia-Minnesota trade has worked out so beautifully for both teams. You know, I look at this, and I know you absolutely despise Colin Cowherd, Palmer, but I am going to say something I heard on his show. He was talking about the fact that you know, NFL teams, all of us fans like to think like, oh, my team won that trade. That's really not what you want to happen. You want a trade to work out for both ends so that other teams are willing to trade with you in the future. They said this team made a great trade and it worked out for both sides. So if you look at both of these teams, when that trade happened, we all thought Minnesota was absolutely insane. And, you know, it still could end up being a trade that looks lopsided for Philadelphia in the future, especially with how well Wentz is playing. But just right now, the fact that, you know, we're talking about Minnesota is the best team in the league and Philadelphia as the team that's right behind them in the NFC, when they made that trade with each other, I think is a huge shock. I never would have seen that coming. I thought one of those teams was going to go absolutely down south because of that trade, and both of them have only gone north.
So my opinion, just really quick, is I agree with what you're saying. You want to have it even, but I don't think it is even because it turned out even, if that makes sense. Like, everybody who saw it thought that Minnesota gave up entirely too much. So everyone initially thought that it was huge in Philadelphia's favor. And since it ended up being even, I think Minnesota won that trade.
I think you're misinterpreting what I'm saying. I'm saying other NFL GMs are going to look back at this trade in the future and say that, look, Minnesota didn't try to screw them. They made a trade that worked out for them, and it was a fair offer. I don't want to trade with the Patriots anymore because every time the Patriots make a trade, that player ends up being dog shit. You know, where you look at this team now, the trade has worked out well for Philadelphia and Minnesota. That's all I'm saying, is it's better for you if the trade works out for the other team rather than if it doesn't.
I completely agree. I'm just saying.
Sorry, I got to cut the rebuttal, Serio.
Okay.
We got to go on, and we're getting stuck on this. So we're going to move it on. We're going to go to best one-win team that might be able to turn it around. Kyle.
Yeah, I've got the Bucs. They had a really tough schedule to start the year. They're playing an average Panthers team right now without Cam Newton, so this is their first chance to turn it around. But like I said, played a good Denver team, a Rams team that was really itching to be better after their subpar week one. And then, and like I said, they've struggled so far, but we'll see what they can do. They're penalizing the crap out of themselves on this drive. But I think they're my one-win team right now.
All right, Serio.
My opinion is going to be in the AFC. It's going to be the San Diego Chargers. They've blown, I want to say, 4 out of their 5 games have been fourth quarter blown leads. If they can just figure out how to not blow a lead, then they could be, you know, equal with the Raiders and the Broncos. But since, for whatever reason, I haven't watched any of their games, so I don't know if it's coming from the offense or the defense or the play calling or all of the above. But, you know, you just take away just or you add game management and you add just smart playing. And I think that they could easily be 3-2 or even 4-1.
Just to add the numbers to you, because this was going to be mine as well, so I can get this out of the way quick. Lost to Kansas City in overtime. Lost to Indianapolis on a last-minute touchdown. Lost to New Orleans on a last-minute score. And lost to Oakland on a last-minute touchdown. So that was mine as well for those reasons. Doobie, who you got?
I'm going to continue on Kyle's vein of being a homer, and I'm going to say the New York Jets. Reason I say so is pretty much the same reason that Kyle said. The Jets have played a really tough schedule to start the year. I know the Bengals aren't looking great, but Bengals, Bills, Chiefs, Seahawks, and Steelers, that's not easy to get through. It doesn't get easier next week, in my opinion. Like I just said, I think they're going to get absolutely crushed by the Cardinals because I think this is Cardinals' week back. But then after that, the schedule really drops off for them. They go Ravens, Cleveland, Miami, LA. Then they have Indianapolis, San Francisco, Miami, Bills, Jaguars, Redskins, Giants, Eagles. Nope, I named too many. Anyways, going back, they played the Patriots twice in that span of games that I just said. That was the only team I didn't name. Other than those two Patriots games, after this Cardinals game, I don't see any that they really should lose. I think the Jets should win all of those, which would put them at 8-8. And I don't think we can put it out of the question that if they get momentum going, they can beat the Patriots one of those two times.
So, as I said, I went with the Chargers. I'm surprised no one went with the Panthers, and that we all think that they are just going to continue this bad stretch that surprised us so much. So that was kind of interesting.
I think that they are the best team. I think that just the uncertainty around Cam Newton's return and and if he gets hit one more time, they're not going to stake their franchise on a team that's already 1-5.
That's fair. All right, we're going to move to our last NFL topic of the night. Keep it short and sweet. Who has been the best rookie in your eyes?
I got Dak. We've already talked about it enough, so we'll go to the next one. Dak Prescott for me.
Yeah, this one's a no-brainer. Roberto Aguayo. No, I'm kidding. I like Dak as well. Just for to throw another name in there, it's going to be the other quarterback, Carson Wentz. I think he's been class.
Dak, and I don't think there's any comparison between him and Carson Wentz. I know Carson's been good, but Dak has looked like a truly seasoned NFL pro.
The only reason why I say Carson is because the O-line and Ezekiel Elliott have just been so good.
That's very true.
That Dak hasn't had to make the same throws.
I'm surprised no one went with Zeke Elliott. 3 straight 130-yard games right now as a rookie through the first 5 games, and the last 3 he's put over 130 each game. Big 60-yard touchdown run last night in the big game. But what's crazy is you're talking about 2 rookies on the same team there in 2 important positions that are just blown up right now.
Which the only reason I would say I think Zeke's having a better season than Dak, even just the fact that you got to give the offensive line a lot of credit for that. Whereas with Dak, he's just making good decisions on his own.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think also there's a little bit in that Dak wasn't expected as much as Zeke. Like a lot of people thought Zeke was going to be a top running back this year. No one expected Dak Prescott to come in and be a top quarterback. So. Well,
I did draft him in 3 of my 4 fantasy leagues, but that's okay.
Who's that?
As a backup or a starter?
As a backup. Yeah. As my backup to Jameis Winston.
Oh, Jesus. All right, we're going to move.
Jameis is a good fantasy quarterback. Come on, man. Don't say Jesus.
Garbage time.
It don't matter to me. Points are points, dog.
Points are points, baby.
All right, we're moving into college football. We're going to keep it pretty basic, nothing out of the ordinary this week. Wasn't a lot of coaching stuff going on unless you think Strong's getting fired. But we're going to go just, as always, start off with some reactions to our picks in the games as a whole.
Yeah, I was 11-8 against the spread, 12-7 straight up. Continue to hold the straight up crown for picks. Slowly but surely trying to make my way towards Doobie. I think I'm 6 games back after starting well behind him because he was unbelievable against the spread. Pretty much run-of-the-mill stuff for all my picks. I did pick Indiana to cover against Ohio State. I was the only one to do that. And obviously I picked FSU straight up because I am a homer and will continue to be that way. Besides that, staying on the FSU topic, that North Carolina loss continues to look bad now that they just got absolutely murdered by Virginia Tech. Don't get me wrong, Virginia Tech is a good football team. The weather and conditions didn't exactly help UNC's pass-happy offense, and they had to run the ball a little bit more than they usually do. But a team that gets beat like that at home, that's definitely not going to look good for Florida State. Not that we're in the playoff picture or anything, but when you talk bowls and who picks what, it's going to be a sore spot for teams.
Yeah, so I'm just going to touch on a few that I got right as well that Kyle didn't. First one was Texas. I think that they were just insanely good.
You and Kyle had the exact same pick on Texas.
Yeah, I got that one right.
Sorry, no, that he did not talk about is what I meant.
There we go. Okay.
And then Texas A&M, I was texting the group. It's just like I called it up. They ended up winning by 7. The line was A&M by 6.5. So, perfect to a T, double overtime. Nailed it. And the last one I want to talk about is Notre Dame. The Irish are really looking like they're about to turn it around. Don't count them out of the playoffs.
Is it just me, or is that way more fun when Graham does it in a mock?
Yeah. It wasn't that funny.
All right, Doobie.
I'd like to apologize not just to the three people that I'm speaking to, and not just to the possibly one or two other people who may be watching this.
Hey,
I'd like to apologize to America and especially Eric Palmer Jones for my absolutely adamant belief that Oregon was going to beat Washington. Not only should I be ashamed, I should probably be publicly punished and embarrassed because that's what Washington did to Oregon. That was really one of the worst performances I've ever seen that I didn't watch a single second of. I just watched the score ticking on the bottom line, and it couldn't even get through one loop during the FSU game of getting back to that score before the score was already 14 points higher in Washington's favor. I am sorry, and I think all credibility that I have built with my against the spread picks up to this point has been lost. Kyle, I concede to you until I do something fantastic. I'm calling you the champ because that was such a bad pick. Now, I also picked Arkansas. Brett, you motherfucker.
To be fair, Doobie, you got them against the spread.
I don't really care what I got. I thought Brett was going to win that game straight up. Not only did Brett not win that game straight up, but he got a 39-year-old professor arrested because he cursed at him after the game so incessantly that he was arrested for indecent conduct and for public drunkenness. And I guess you guys didn't know that I am a professor at Arkansas University. That was me. I was the guy. I had to really book it back to Florida to get here in time for this podcast, but I was really pissed at Brett, and I couldn't help myself, so I'll apologize for that as well.
What was the bail on that?
It was 3 chicken wings and 4 racks of ribs.
Just how Brett likes it.
All right, so Doobie, not in all the pile on you, but I actually was shocked that I was the only one that had Wazoo straight up against Stanford. I thought you were going to be on board with me on that one.
I did pick them against the spread.
Them against the spread,
and I did put money on them to win that straight up. So
I thought you had that. I was a little confused when I saw on the sheet that you weren't going with them straight up. I was really happy with that one. I, against my Florida State hopes, did pick VT, Virginia Tech over UNC. I had a feeling it was a hangover game coming. I did not anticipate the weather to be a big part of that, but also Justin Fuente can flat out coach. We knew that. He's showing it. VT is going to be a good team for the foreseeable future with him at the helm. So that's something I'm keeping
it could be Clemson. It could be Clemson VT here in Orlando. It wouldn't be the least bit surprised.
Entirely possible at this point. Two undefeateds fell, I believe. How many undefeateds fell? Well, let's see. We had
Tennessee.
Air Force Academy fell.
Tennessee.
Western Michigan won. Tennessee, was that the only two?
I think so.
All right, so we had 2 undefeateds fall. I'm starting to keep track of that each week. No, Houston. Houston also fell.
You're right.
No one has talked about the Houston game yet. Hopefully we'll at some point. But we're going to move it on for now. And we are.
I picked Navy to cover that spread. I didn't pick the straight up, but I was the only one who picked Navy to cover that spread.
The man does not lie. He did do that indeed. We're going to move on to what's going to be fun for us and fun for some of our viewers. And that is FFM. If you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. We're going to talk some Noles Miami game. Kyle.
Yeah, so I was really happy to see a kick-related ending finish in the Noles' favor for once. So obviously we all know about wide right 1, 2, and 3. In my opinion, we'll talk a little bit about Francois.
Don't forget wide left.
Yeah, there's wide left 1 and 2 as well. I kept those away, but it was really just nice to see something go right for us in terms of a kick against Miami. Francois was a warrior in the second half. Was really just battered and beaten pretty much the whole game. Took late hits. So did Kai. It was a little dirty. Got a little chippy as far as late hits on the quarterback on both sides. But Francois was a warrior, really led the team in the second half. Dalvin did his thing against Miami. That man owns his hometown. It's pretty unreal. And some guys, young guys in the secondary grew up. Levante Taylor had some good burn. Kyle Myers played a little bit. Tavares McFadden needs to figure out how to even out and not be, all or nothing, because right now either he gets a flag thrown on him and gives up a TD or he gets an interception. There's no in the middle at this point.
Tied for the NCAA lead in interceptions with 4.
Yeah, it's impressive. But like I said, he also gets beat. I don't know what the number of touchdowns he's given up is either. I don't know. It was a fun game. Miami competed. Stacey Coley is a boss. Brad Kai disappeared in the second half, and that's really why we won the football game. He's obviously going to be a top-flight NFL prospect, but the fact that he hasn't beaten a ranked team, I feel like should be a red flag to NFL executives that he can't win the big one. I'm not sure if it will be. Obviously, he can throw the football, but we'll see. Florida State got lucky. He's not a threat to run whatsoever, so we could just go at him and not have to play a spy or anything. It was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I agree. The first half was really tough. Orlando surprisingly has a lot of University of Miami alums. So, it was really fun to watch the game in I guess you would call it neutral city. And just the first half having to deal with Miami fans. I went out in a Florida State polo. So that just apparently someone stuck a sign that said, "Go up into my face and clap as loud as you can." So that was, a lot of fun to have that second half turn out like it did. I tweeted at the very end, and I still stand by this. I would rather lose 1,000 times to UNC than lose to Miami once. Perry quickly called me out on it as being a drunk take, which it was. But
I retweeted it. I liked it.
Retweet, yes. And I stand by that. I mean, I would honestly rather lose to UNC and have to experience that and have the option to watch Miami fans sink into their seats and realize that the Noles have won 7 in a row against them. It's the best feeling.
Sir, I do want to point out that, I think this is 2 times in the past 3 years that you've gotten into incidents with Miami fans clapping in your face. At some point, it's time to point the finger at yourself. I think that it's your fault, and you need to really reassess the way that you no, but seriously, Miami fans have no credibility because anyone who would ever yell at you probably didn't go there, as Sirio said. I think you're really giving them a lot of credit by saying that they graduated from FIU. That's a 4-year institution. So let's back that up a little bit. But, the biggest thing about this game was heart. Earlier in the week, I had said I thought we'd blow them out. I thought it'd be a big win. I didn't expect Miami's defense to be that good. Now, we don't truly know that. Miami's defense could go out the rest of the season and get crushed by every team they play. And we're looking back at this game and saying, wow, Florida State really isn't any good. That was just a bad Miami team. That being said, I don't think that's the case. The inspiration I saw among the team, Sam Ponder even came on the television and said it. She said, I've covered 3 FSU games this year so far, and I don't know what's gotten into this team. These players are yelling at each other before the coaches can even get to them. They seem so inspired, so ready to win. I think it was kind of what I anticipated, that Jimbo is a very good coach and did get the boys up for that, and that we maybe overreacted a little bit on Charles Kelly. I also think the fact that Derwin James on the sideline realized that if he's not in the game, he needs to make that impact on the sideline made a big difference. So I was extremely impressed. I do want to just hear Palmer's take before I say what I'm going to say about that. But I think Erman Lane is a guy who we should all be very impressed with. Kid still doesn't tackle without standing straight up, but his instincts on defense are fantastic. And I'm going to go as far to say is I don't know if we win that game if Erman Lane isn't in there. He did a lot of great things getting to the ball and stopping plays, even just by helping. So to see a guy who turns from receiver and then makes that impact is really good, and he's such a freak athlete. He can make it to the NFL.
What year is he? Sorry.
He's a junior.
True junior.
I was looking at Twitter after the game and then into Sunday afternoon, and some people made good points that that dude loves to hit people even on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, he was our best blocker.
He was our best blocker.
Jimbo said that he was the best blocking receiver he ever had.
Yeah, he loves to hit people.
And that's bold the way Kelvin used to block.
Kelvin only blocked when he wanted to. He was lazy too. But
when he did, he lit people.
yeah, but I mean, seriously, man, like Erman loves to hit people, so it's not that out of the box to think that he could succeed because he's so athletic. So, just add it to the list of guys that change where they want to be. He realized that his time was running out, and he's going to be at Florida State for 4 years and sit on the bench. He's not going to get in as a receiver. Might as well go ahead and flip the script with an injured Nate Andrews and say, hey, I'm athletic. Give me a playbook from the other side of the ball and see what I can do. It was real fun to watch him get in the backfield and make a play. That was awesome.
Yeah, and I don't think it should be any worry the fact that he's tackling straight up right now. He's never played in real game action on defense, and he's used to blocking straight up. So that's what he's been taught to do. Once he's now had full game action, they're going to get him in and practice a lot more, and they're going to teach him how to form tackle. I think he's got honest potential to get to the NFL with another year playing safety at Florida State. But the one thing I did want to say to Palmer, and I'm curious because I know when you first watched the game, you were very negative on our performance still. And when you first watched DeAndre Francois this season, you were very negative on him to the point to calling him the reverse Heisman. I vehemently disagree with you then, and I will even more vehemently disagree with you now. I think that kid is clutch. He's a warrior. Desmond Howard said that he's the toughest quarterback he's seen since Brett Favre, and I think that's hard to disagree with. I want to hear if, based on that Miami game, now that you've watched it again, if you still have the same view of DeAndre Francois as a garbage player.
So I've never had the view that he's a garbage player, first of all. I wanted that to be very clear. Reverse Heisman can mean a lot of things, and like I said last week, I was having trouble, and he had disappointed me that he hadn't improved in areas I wanted him to improve in. I think he's got a lot of areas he still needs to improve in. I think you cannot deny his toughness. He is tough as damn nails. He took hit after hit. He's taken hit after hit all season, and he stands in, he takes it, he delivers, he plays hurt. Skill and ability point of view, he's got some stuff he's really got to work on. Biggest thing is holding on to the ball too long. I'm not saying all of his sacks are due to that by any means. The O-line has been responsible for a lot. But he takes a lot of bad sacks for holding on to the ball. He's got to learn how to throw the ball out of bounds, and when he does, he's got to learn how to do it near receiver so you don't have an intentional grounding that kills your punt, like happened at the end of the Miami game. He's got a lot to work on, but he's a freshman, and he's got time to work on them. I'll tell you the one throw that gave me a lot of confidence when I watched the replay this afternoon, and it was actually about 10 minutes after we were texting Doobie, and he hit that crossing route to Bobo, and it was not thrown behind the damn receiver. Because that has been my worst problem with Francois this year is that he throws everything in the middle well behind receivers, and they have to make great catches to catch it. That thing was on the money. And if he can
his throw to Auden Tate was pretty nice, too.
Yeah.
His throw to Auden Tate was pretty nice.
Yeah.
I mean, so was his throw. I know Dalvin was wide open, but to reverse field and toss that ball perfectly on the money to Dalvin was a good throw, too.
And he's shown he can do that throw a few times this year. He definitely can make that throw because he's done it about 4 or 5 times this year now on those misdirection plays, which I love that we've added to the offense this year. I love him as his toughness. I want to see where he can improve as a passer because he's got areas he's got to improve as a passer if we want to be a top team and we want him to be a top quarterback. But, man, I would follow that kid. I mean, Jesus, the way he came back into that game hurt several times and played it like he did, that's just impressive on every level.
Yeah, he's obviously gained his respect of his teammates. Dalvin said he'd go to war with that man any day. That's a big thing coming from Dalvin Cook, So it's impressive to see. That guy's going to be our quarterback again next year, as far as I know. So it's finishing up 2016, going into 2017. It's really exciting to see how that guy evolves for sure.
I do want to bring up one more point before we move on really quick. On the quarterback topic, Sean McGuire, or as I like to call him these days, Big Sean, got in there. He looked like he'd been at the Palace drinking beers for the past 36 hours.
I've been saying that.
His face was about 3 times bigger than it was at the start of the season. And he just looked like he was like, I thought I was going to be a grad assistant. What the hell am I doing in this game? I thought my time had passed. Jimbo, I ain't doing this no more. I've been out partying every day of the week. I'm not blaming him at all. But I think it's funny that at the beginning of the season I said that Sean McGuire was the most important player for Florida State, and then he got in there and literally looked like a Billy Bob Thornton movie when you threw a quarterback who had been sitting on the sidelines for too long in. That was fantastic. I'm not mad at Sean. I think it's like a really great thing that he's not concerned about playing anymore.
Last quick point on Florida State before we move on. Crazy that, barring that crazy late 54-yard field goal from UNC, we win 2 straight games because of a blocked extra point in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
That's something to keep an eye on, and maybe Jimbo will stop pushing everyone and backing off the line on field goals and try to block some darn field goals too, because apparently our line can get the hell in there.
Or DeMarcus Walker.
Yeah, I may against UNC and Walker against Miami. That's something to keep an eye on if we start to try to block some kicks. All right, we're going to move on away from FSU. Apologize to the few non-FSU listeners we have. We're going to go into our Heisman leaders for the year.
Yeah, I'll keep it short and sweet. I've got 4. In my opinion, I think Lamar Jackson, it's still his award to lose. The dude is on center stage every single week for his team, and he just accounts for all their yards. As long as they keep scoring and winning, I feel like if they're a one-loss team, I think it's his to lose. Got J.T. Barrett in there along with Deshaun Watson and Dalvin Cook. Browning from Washington is my outside guy with the chance to step into the conversation if a couple of these guys falter. The only reason I say that is because I'm not that impressed with the teams that he's played. I really thought that Oregon and Stanford would be better. That is not the case, at least thus far. Stanford could win out and everything could change. But Browning's been obviously really good. He's got great numbers. But my 4, Jackson, Barrett, Watson, and Cook.
Yeah, I don't even have 4. I have 3. Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, and J.T. Barrett. And I said it the last time I was on 2 or 3 weeks ago that whoever wins the Louisville-Clemson game would most likely go on to and I'm going to stick by that. Deshaun Watson is my front runner. I know Doobie's going to disagree and say J.T. Barrett, but I just haven't seen enough from Dalvin yet. And I know you guys are about to tee off on me, and that's okay because I want to, get that on the podcast. But I just don't think that with the games where he's done bad versus the games like Miami where he completely lit it up, I think that voters are going to take the losses in a negative light against him unfairly.
I'll go ahead and address that immediately. I'll just say my number 1 is still Lamar Jackson. That being said, I don't think any of us are factoring in that he is going to take a hit from that Houston loss. That game is not going to look as big when it comes towards the end of the season. And if and I don't think this is completely out of the question. I know we're all so high on Louisville, but I don't think it's completely out of the question that they could lose another game other than Houston. If they do that, he's out. He's a quarterback. And unlike other players on the field, if you don't win as a quarterback, you are not going to win the Heisman. So I still rank him as number 1 today, but I don't think he's number 1 at the end of the season. My number 2 is Dalvin Cook. Serial, I really don't know how you could say that. He's
have him number 2?
Yes, he is number 2 in the NCAA in all-purpose yards, just behind Donnell Pumphrey, who does not play a Power 5 schedule. Florida State has played, I don't think anyone in the country would argue against the fact that Florida State has played the hardest schedule in the country up to this point, and he is the number 2 player in all-purpose yards without returning any kicks or punts. That is so absurd and so out of the question that that's happening right now that I don't know how you could say that. And that's with what you just mentioned.
Look what McCaffrey did last year.
McCaffrey returned kicks and punts. 90% of those yards were from that. He returned like 5 or 6 kicks and punts for touchdowns. You can't compare them at all.
I'm just saying, if you're going to say all-purpose yards.
No, but that's what I just said. He's not returning kicks and punts, so it's completely different. So then you look at this and you say that he had bad games. He had one bad game, and it was Louisville. I know to our standards that Ole Miss game didn't look like a good game, but he had great all-purpose yards in that game too. He is an incredible receiver. I think he's vaunted himself above Leonard Fournette on draft boards.
I think you guys took what I said out of context. I just said I had 3, and I wasn't ready to put Dalvin in. Nowhere did I say that Dalvin is a piece of shit. I have him 4th, and I just have him farther down 4th than you guys.
Well, I'm just saying that I don't think that one Louisville game is going to be held against him. I don't think that's going to be the case. If he falters in another couple games, absolutely. But especially if he can deliver against Clemson like he did last year, I think you're going to see him in the thick of the Heisman race because everybody wants a running back in there, and there's no one besides him in the question right now.
Since you said that.
All right, sorry guys, we got to move it on. We got 10 minutes. If we're keeping this under an hour like we promised.
Okay.
I'm going to have to cut off the argument. We're going to have to go into most disappointing team. Kyle.
Yeah, for me, it's Oregon/Stanford. The Pac-12 bigwigs over the last couple of years have been very, very disappointing. Oregon can't recruit a quarterback. It is very much showing at this point how much you need a guy in that system to actually know the offense. It worked with Vernon Adams last year. It is not working with Dakota Prukop this year. They've now gone to Justin Herbert, who's the true freshman quarterback. As bad as it sounds and as much as it might hurt him this year for the older guys, it's probably the best case scenario. This guy gets in and gets game action as a freshman. Who knows what could happen over the next couple of years. I've got Oregon and Stanford, with Oregon really my most disappointing.
So I'm going to lump my most disappointing and my reverse Heisman into one team. It's going to be Notre Dame and Deshaun Kaiser. They've just been a train wreck. I mean, I know that I like to stick up for them at ridiculous moments with, a string of hope, but it's past that point. Like, it's not even funny anymore. It's just, I sound like just a retard. And so Notre Dame, 100%.
Brian Kelly could have been named in there too, but since you already said Oregon, Kyle, which is obviously my most disappointing considering I staked my entire manhood on them, I'm going to go with the University of Florida. The fact that they not that they rescheduled the game or they canceled that game, that actually made sense at the time, and I don't blame them for not wanting people to be in risk. But the fact that LSU offered to play that game in Gainesville on Sunday or Monday, they also offered to play that game in Baton Rouge, Mobile, or in New Orleans, and to pay for the plane costs by giving Florida their private jet, and to pay for all of their housing costs when they're there, and Florida denied every single one of those options, is disappointing to a T. I think that everyone sees through this. I don't think that anyone sees this as Florida was just trying to keep people safe. I think even Florida fans, maybe not, no, definitely not, but they should see the fact. They should see the fact that they're without 2 defensive linemen and 3 offensive linemen, or vice versa, and they're without Del Rio, and they were trying to parlay this into having Del Rio back and having their guys back and making this look like LSU was the bad team because LSU is not willing to give up a home game. Well, look at this. LSU makes a lot more revenue playing against a shit team than Florida does because they still sell out that stadium. I wouldn't expect LSU to give up that home game, and the only way this is happening is if Florida is going on November 19th to play at LSU.
I'm going to go a little off the wall. I'm going to go Maryland. And I know I'm the only one that actually picked them to win that game. They were favored by 1 against Penn State. But I really like what's going on at that school. I think the new coach, I completely just blanked on his name because I'm crazy like that.
DJ Durkin.
Thank you, DJ Durkin. So Durkin's there now, and I really like what he's doing recruiting with the team. They were undefeated. I think Penn State's garbage. I thought they had that game. They got beat up by a bad Penn State team. I'm pretty upset with them about that. We're going to move along now. Most impressive team on the reverse.
So I had Texas A&M in there. I know they let Tennessee back in it with a bonehead not covering up the football by the guy running down for the game-winning touchdown. Texas A&M looks really good. Their defensive ends are really good. I think it's time to start taking them seriously. They've won some big games, and who knows? In the SEC West, they're a threat.
Doobie, you want to skip me because I think I'm going to steal your team.
Probably not. You can go.
Okay. Well, first, I'm going to be a homer and just say Florida State, but I'm not going to touch on them since we already spent like an hour on it. Washington, just what they were able to do, and exactly what Doobie said earlier, just points left and right, left and right. I mean, they're the real deal. They really are. Is it not fair to say that they could find themselves to be in, the bubble at the end of the season if they keep this pace?
They're in if they keep this pace.
They're in, yeah. If they win out, they're in, man. Undefeated conference champions going to the playoff.
Okay. I mean, but one of the other teams would have to lose, right?
No.
Well, there's not going to be 5 undefeated conference champions.
Yeah,
Okay.
Michigan and Ohio State play each other,
True.
so they'll jump above Michigan or Ohio State.
So that's, I just think that's ridiculous what they've been able to do.
I'm going to go with Navy. This team, year after year, has a great, great squad, and I don't think any of us realize that every single one of the players on their team has to agree to serve in the military for 4 years after they finish their football career. So basically, none of these guys are ever going to the NFL. It's really incredible that they can do this year after year, and they looked good doing it against Houston, and I love the heart that their coach showed, and I love seeing all the midshipmen getting to run out on the field. I think that's impressive. By no means do I think they're a New Year's Day Bowl or whatever we call them now contender. New Year's Six. I don't think they're a New Year's Six contender, but I think that we should all be very impressed, and I think it's a great story that a military academy can continue to do this year after year.
I was going to go Navy, and it was just part of my thing, so I'm just going to add one last thing to that. The superintendent of a school like Navy, so this is pretty shocking, canceled classes through Tuesday in celebration of this victory. So I thought that was awesome.
That was awesome.
So I was putting that as the most impressive thing of the week, at least. All right, a few topics left. As always, we're going with the reverse Heisman. This can be a player usually it's a player on an important team that's not doing well. You can kind of get off the wall with it, though, and explain yourself. So we're going to see what everyone came up with this week.
Yeah, just to pile on the Miami hate talk, my reverse Heisman for the week is Brad Kaya. I touched on a little bit earlier. He absolutely disappeared in the second half. You'll see Miami beat writers say that he got beat up on the first play by Jacob Pugh, and that's, then he got hit by Matt Thomas and knocked out his molar. Truth be told, he made some terrible decisions, especially that throw in the end zone. I mean, that was never there. It was an absolute gift for Florida State to even get that. I'm not convinced that Coley's first touchdown was actually 6 points. I know it was a great throw into a great spot. I don't think he ever had a foot down. He did make a big throw at the end, but like I said, I think McFadden should have made a play there. You can't have a big guy in a big situation pretty much disappear on you, and he's not a threat to run the ball at all. I think he was 20 of 31 for like 214. Those numbers are pretty minuscule. He's my reverse Heisman for the week.
Okay. I already said Deshaun Kaiser. I don't want to talk about it anymore.
That's right. Sorry.
I'm going with Mitch Trubisky. Guy before this week, after he beat Florida State and made us look like a Pop Warner team, was being considered by a lot of people as a fringe Heisman contender because he had been elite in every regard up until that point. I don't care that it was raining. I don't care what happened. He threw for 55 yards against Virginia Tech and 2 interceptions. I know that Virginia Tech's quarterback only threw for 79 yards or whatever it was, but he threw for 2 touchdowns. Trubisky, not only did you blow your shot at the Heisman, but you blew your shot at ever being considered an elite quarterback again.
Way to go, Mitch.
So I am doing something that, it's horribly inaccurate. He had a good game. I don't care because I've been wanting to do it all damn year. I did the first week. I get to do it again.
Oh, no.
Joshua Dobbs at Tennessee.
Oh, you're crazy.
Awful interception. I don't care that he had a great game. I know he did. This is ridiculous, and I shouldn't be saying it. I just think he's a horrible quarterback, and I'm taking full advantage of his game losing the interception. Plus, I was going with Mitch Trubisky, and Doobie stole it, so I had to come off the wall with something. All right, we're moving on to
two in a row for steals.
Yeah, you're killing me on those, man. I can't do much if you do that right for me every time. All right, we're going to a little preview of next week. We have 3 ranked matchups according to the AP poll. It is Alabama at Tennessee, Ole Miss at Arkansas, and Ohio State at Wisconsin, which in my opinion is the biggest of them. Also, any other games y'all want to talk about, help yourselves. Kyle, we have a few minutes to finish out under an hour. What do you have?
Yeah, I'll keep it short. Bama and Tennessee is going to be a lot of fun. Tennessee doesn't go away, which I think makes this game really interesting. I think obviously Bama comes out on top. Ole Miss, Arkansas, I really like Arkansas. I really want them to start to turn it on solely for the fact that they can get on a win streak and go beat Florida, because I don't want Florida to find a way to sneak into that SEC championship game. And the way it currently stands, that could happen. So I don't want that to happen. I like Arkansas there and good old Brett, but Doobie will touch that a little bit later. And then OSU, Wisconsin, I agree with Palmer. It's going to be the best game of the weekend. Like Ohio State, I think Wisconsin has looked really good. Let's see if they can prove they're for real with that freshman quarterback. They've beat a bunch of teams already this year, but I'm excited. Those 3 top 25 matchups will be fun.
Yeah, so I picked Bama to lose last week. I think they're a overrated team. I think Tennessee is going to be really pissed off about the way that They lost last week. So I'm going to have Tennessee win the game. Definitely cover the spread, but this might be my second in the entire season where I pick a straight up. Don't hold me to that. Next, Arkansas is who I had beating Alabama. So I'm still really high on them. Maybe it's because I'm, just getting really delusional by how much Brett Bielema talk Perry has. But I like him. I mean, I've started paying more attention since Perry's gone on this love fest for him, and I think that they're a good team. So, I mean, we know what Ole Miss is about. We saw it firsthand, and I think that Arkansas comes out on top. As far as OSU, Wisconsin, it's got to be OSU. I think that they're just too complete of a team.
I think that my feelings on Brett Bielema have been misinterpreted. I don't love Brett Bielema. I despise Brett Bielema. I wish that Brett Bielema disappeared from this earth and never came back, and I think that's exactly what's going to happen to him after Ole Miss and Chad Kelly runs onto the field and destroys them. It is going to be a massacre. I hope it's a massacre, and I hope Brett Bielema never eats again. As far as the other games that we have, I just had to. You said that I love a love fest for Brett. I had to clarify. The other two big matchups, I actually think that these are big games, not for this week, but for next. I think that Alabama going to Tennessee, I think that is going to be a difficult game. I think they're going to have to expend a lot of energy, and then they have Texas A&M coming in the next week, which is, in my opinion, the biggest game of the season. Texas A&M's on a bye, whereas Alabama's going to have to go battle at Rocky Top. That is going to be essential, and I think that Alabama is going to be exhausted. I think they beat Tennessee, but I think it's going to be a tough game. Then you look at Ohio State having to go into Camp Randall. That's going to be a very tough game for them. I think they pull it out, but then they have to go. And you're not familiar with Penn State. They play one night game a year, and it is always absolute madness when it happens. I don't think they escape that game. So I think that those two matchups are important because of the implications they have on those two teams losing the next week.
Doobie, what was the Penn State game? I don't know if the feed lost your sound, but I lost your sound. So what was the Penn State game again?
It's in Penn State at night. Ohio State, Penn State. Penn State only plays one night game a year, so they're going to be fired up. But then I do want to point out a few games that are not top 25. NC State, Clemson. NC State has been very impressive all year. I think that'll be an interesting game to see how good Clemson is. I don't think losing, but if NC State keeps that close, the rest of the ACC should be on notice. UNC, Miami. That is a good game to determine who will contend with Virginia Tech for the Coastal. Stanford, Notre Dame. Who is more disappointing? We'll find out. And then Washington State, UCLA. This game has a lot of implications for a lot of reasons. I think if Wazoo wins this game, and I think that if Washington State wins this game, Washington State's a true contender for the Pac-12. And if you don't know, Washington State has two losses. One of them is to Eastern Washington, who does not play in FBS, and the other is to Boise State, who is ranked in the top 25. I don't think it's out of the question to say that if Washington State beats UCLA, they've got a weak schedule all the way up until they play Washington, and I think that game could end up being a really season.
The Apple Cup.
Yeah.
The Apple Cup.
Yeah, we need to start having a segment about these weird trophies that go out on games. The only game I'll add to everything, because I think we're 3 minutes over, I apologize for breaking my promise, is that I'm going to pay attention to every Western Michigan game until the end of time because of Row Your Boat PJ Fleck and the undefeated Western Michigan football team, which is now ranked number 24. Hope you all enjoyed it. We're logging off for the night. Everyone can go enjoy the rest of this awful Bucks-Panthers game that is right now 6-0.
Go Bucks!
Go Jameis.
Awful.
I don't hate you, Dalvin.
Good night, y'all.